Dirty Birds, what's up? Welcome back. We have the first scrimmage of training camp to break down today. The Falcons have their first preseason game of the 2025 season coming up on Friday night. They will take on the Detroit Lions, like everybody's favorite team from last season. So that'll be fun to watch. They'll take them on at 7 o'clock, and we will have our first Falcons final whistle coming Monday to recap you on the game. So, man, we're getting right back into the flow of the regular season, it feels like. And, you know, the Falcons are going to see some big faces out there, I think, on Friday night, but there's going to maybe be some familiar faces that we don't see. Terrin, what do we know about who is and is not going to be playing on Friday?
Timeline update. On Monday, Raheem Morris said that... I'm already blanking on names.
Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix. Yep.
You know, like the two biggest names. Neither Kirk Cousins nor Michael Penix Jr. will play in Friday's game. That has already been announced. He said it confidently. And then today, as in Wednesday, he did say that rookies will play. But the big takeaway from what he has said about everything in general when it comes to Friday's game is that the decisions aren't exactly finalized besides the two quarterbacks, because they wanted to see what came out of Wednesday's scrimmage before making any decisions. Because if someone showed what they needed to, there's no reason to risk an injury.
Yeah, so today, Wednesday, was about the guys who we may not end up seeing on Friday. You know, the players that you want to kind of take care of throughout the preseason. You may have high expectations, or frankly, you've seen enough. And like you said, they don't necessarily need to see any more, and they like to protect the guys and prevent that risk of injury. So that is why we saw in a more controlled environment on Wednesday a really important scrimmage. So Tori, who stood out to you in really like the first kind of real live intense action?
Yeah, so I think for me, what stood out the most right off the bat very early, and then it continued on through the entirety of the scrimmage, was the fact of how heavily rotated the first team second safety position was and the first team this slot position was. And I say that I'm going to kind of break it down into the two positions. Going into this offseason, this preseason, we knew that the Falcons had some spots up for grab, mainly the starting safety position right beside Jessie Bates III and that nickel spot. Even though Dee Alford has held that spot for the last 2 years, it's kind of an open competition at this point in time, and they're really wanting to challenge D as well as see what happens with Billy Bowman. So we knew that those were two positions of competition. I guess I did not realize until this moment how heavily contested that those two competitions truly are. And I say that because very early on you would see the first team defense go out there, and you would see Jordan Fuller alongside Jessie Bates, and you'd see Dee Alford in the slot, and you're like, okay, there's that group. They're going to be running with that the whole time.
The veterans.
Yeah, the veterans. That was not the case at all. And when it got to the like Mamba period, which is first team offense versus first team defense, they were rotating that second safety spot and that nickel spot almost in consecutive plays. So for that second safety spot, you had Jordan Fuller, you had Xavier Watts, and you had DeMarco Helms getting significant reps with the first team alongside Jessie Bates. And then at nickel, you had, with the first team, Billy Bowman Jr., Dee Alford, and you even saw a little bit of Mike Hughes in there as well early on. So I guess, like, for me, it is one of those things where it's like you knew all these like competitions were happening, but seeing how each person really does have a shot to establish themselves at that spot. And it doesn't feel right now, based on what we saw today in this scrimmage, that there is one person who has a leg up in that. Like, I do think, this is me personally, Xavier Watts, it's his race to win ultimately in the long run at that second safety spot. And I think the same thing with Billy Bowman Jr., but that's not the case where they are right now in their rookie year. And so I guess like that was something that stuck out immediately to me of like, oh, this is a much more significant camp battle than maybe even I originally thought.
You got to see it to believe it.
Right, yeah.
Well, I do think it makes sense for a couple of reasons, right? Like why not at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like all you got going for you are camp battles. It's training camp. It's time for that. So give them as much run. Let them either win it or lose it, kind of out there on the field. But the second reason is if we think back to kind of the Dan Quinn era when Raheem and Ulbrich were last here, they rotated a lot of guys as well, specifically on the defensive line. And that requires a lot of kind of communication and coordination amongst the players and the coaching staff. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was like a little bit of an element of let's dry run this and let's get these guys in and out, because those are positions specifically that I do think not only are we seeing camp battles, but we could see specific strategic rotations throughout the season. So just like the defensive line, you want to get your slots in and you want to get your safeties in there. But we kind of split up a little bit for this practice. Beautiful weather. I loved how we had some freedom to move around. The players were on the sidelines, but it wasn't a huge, massive clump kind of like there is sometimes. So we haven't really even talked about what this practice was. And there were a lot of cool plays, a lot of big-name players making some plays, new faces making plays. Terrin, what was your vibe on this whole practice? Was it back and forth? Was it one-sided? Did the defense win, offense win? What'd you see?
Oh, gosh. My mind is like running 100 miles an hour, a minute, or whatever you want to call it, really fast since I just finished writing the camp report. So now I'm like, it's like the Matrix in my mind trying to figure out what exactly I want to pinpoint. Because you mentioned that in like our pre-podcast meeting of like one side or the other, this and that. I'm like, I don't know necessarily. I think there were peak moments from both sides. So I guess that would be balanced.
Yeah. I felt the same way.
Like, I can't pick one or the other.
I thought that very early on, I felt the offense kind of got out to a hot start when Michael Penix was in. And there's this one play specifically that you'll see it on our social media.
Ray-Ray.
But it was this deep ball to Ray-Ray McCloud down the right sideline. And I'm actually gonna show y'all this photo of me. And I'm gonna send it to producer Jared so he can kind of like put it up as well.
How much can he zoom in? We're gonna find out.
Well, that's gonna be the question. But this was me when that throw was made to...
Hold it up to the camera.
I don't know if you can see.
Her cheeks are like puffed out.
That is,
it's like the whoo, like the Arthur meme. It's like literally just like whoo.
That's what it was. It was me just being... Because it was like so... It was so...
That's a sheesh face if I've ever seen one.
It was the most beautiful throw that and everyone on the sideline, Terrin, like some of our other like reporters, I almost like flagged you down, like, did you see
that? Throw your phone to me across
right, yeah. And Arch, I showed him that picture and he's like, that's hilarious. And it was the most beautiful throw that I think we've seen all of camp. And it was, right in step. Ray-Ray didn't slow down. He was right in stride. We're talking about a 45-yard flip the field moment, and that was right off the bat. So I thought that really set the tone. But also, you have to also talk about the fact that Leonard Floyd picked off Kirk Cousins the very first play of the defense. So it once we got into
boom.
Yeah, it was big play, and then they kind of got into it, and you could tell they started to work on some things. But overall, I agree with kind of y'all where it was like each unit had their moments. And even Young Wei Koo, I think, made like a 50-yarder. So like even special teams were on one today.
He went 5 of 6.
There you go.
Yeah, even like after that first big play to Ray-Ray, you were kind of mentioning like there were moments then when the defense really buckled down in the red zone, and I thought you kind of, because you started with the 1s and the 2s, the offense started really fast, and then the starting defense started really fast, like you mentioned. And Leonard Floyd, like we'll get to, I guess we can transition now to our offensive and defensive standouts. To me, like Leonard Floyd, I was trying the whole time, like, to not just give it to him, and then another player kind of, I think, took it, wrestled it away from him later in practice, and we'll get to that when we get to the offensive guys. But I think we've done all this talking about the rookies, and we've done, a lot of talking about even Divine Diablo. To me, Leonard Floyd is going to be the newcomer that makes the biggest impact on this Falcons team. And we've just kind of like not talked about him a ton because of some of these new younger pieces that are fun. And he's going to be the guy.
Yeah, and we've only talked about him, I feel like, in the context of what he can be for James Pierce Jr.
Right, exactly.
Right? We haven't,
the veteran role player.
Right, yeah. And like how he can help him, how he can be a mentor to him, but not the fact that Leonard Floyd is someone who has had 8, 9, 10 sacks in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and he's still got it. Like, there's so much veteran. This whole, like, training camp, I've been kind of watching him, and he's been doing things where he's in position to make the play, but he also understands that, like, right now the rep is the most important thing. So I'm going to let the pass get completed to Bijan, even though I'm here in the flat and kind of knock it down if I needed to. Well, on Wednesday, he was like, now's the time to show y'all that I can actually make the play. And he did that right off the jump. And if the Falcons start week 1 against Tampa Bay and it is a Michael Penix bomb down the field, we punch it in with the run game, and then you turn right around and it's Leonard Floyd picking off Baker and taking it the distance. I mean, what better way to start the season than that?
You'll hear no complaints from me.
Did anybody else have any defensive standouts that we want to call out?
Defense. I'll let you go, Terrin.
Defense. No.
I
like,
with bated breath.
Right.
I know, like, I'm sorry. Not that there was anything wrong or anything bad.
Right.
I just.
Why are you guys both clutching your
know.
phones?
Well, I know.
Like,
I was
metaphorically?
He's mad at us.
Saying felt like saying something wrong, but I guess I was just like so focused on getting like play by play by play by play. I was looking more big picture.
Yeah, I think for me it wasn't necessarily like one person. It was how significant the rotation was happening across that defensive front. Like they were running people in and out every 2 plays, if not every other play. And that's why I even tweeted, I'm like, hey guys, I'm not going to tell you what the defensive front rotation is right now, because I would be sending a tweet every 30 seconds trying to keep up with it. But I think this is finally what the Falcons have ultimately wanted from this defensive front and never had the opportunity to have because of the bodies that they did not have to this point. So I think this is something that I go back 2 years to when Ryan Nielsen was here, and I feel like this was the type of defense he wanted. He wanted these like almost hockey lines of significant rotation within this defensive front. But it got to the point in the season where injuries happened. That was the year that Grady Jarrett goes down, and he really couldn't.
He didn't have the bodies.
He didn't have the bodies. He didn't have the different body types. He didn't have the personnel to do it. Whereas now, Jeff Ulbrich, based on the moves that this front office has made, whether it be in free agency or the draft, he has those bodies and he has the capabilities to have that steady rotation, which we're actively seeing right now.
Though I can't pinpoint one exact person in this moment in time, there were 2 things that Will said that really like clicked or flipped switches in my brain, where when it does come to the rotation, I didn't even think about how important it is to practice that, so you're not getting like the wrong person going on or the right, like too many people switching or too many on, too many off kind of thing. Like you need to do that.
Penalty.
That's the word I want. Again,
there you go.
Matrix in my mind. And
you're the spinny wheel of the multicolor spinny wheel on the computer.
The caffeine that I had before this, I don't know if it's hit or if it's
not
hitting
hit
too hard. But so that like clicked, and I think today allowed that, because while it is way too difficult, as Tori said, to keep up with every single one rotating, like I got the first lineup and I was like, nope, this will never be set in stone.
No, that was the thing.
Never.
Yeah.
And then the second thing, when you were talking about like in the red zone defense stepping up, I think one area of concern I've had about this whole attack style front is you're putting so much on rushing the passer that what about your run defense?
Fair
And I have asked Nate Ollie about that, the defensive line coach, and he's like, well, it's a give and take game. Like,
it is.
It's
you
true.
can't be good at everything
You only
unless
have
you
11
have like
bodies.
Hall of Fame caliber players like everyone.
You have 22 players on defense instead of 11. But it was right after the Ray-Ray throw, actually, because they're, I think, a few yards short of the end zone. Ray-Ray didn't exactly get it, but he came close. And it was 3 runs in a row by Bijan Robinson that the defense just kept stuffing him along the line. To be fair, you can't fully tackle in this scrimmage, even though they're trying it to be as game-like as possible. So who knows if Bijan would have been Bijan and slid his way through. But it was pretty impressive. And then they threw Tyler Algier, and
he just
the bowling ball just went right in. Because they're just so different and they are used in different ways. But that in that moment, it's like, all right,
maybe they got something.
You can do a little bit of both and be successful at both. It depends what bodies were in there.
Yeah, I do think that the red zone area did highlight some of the other players who stood out on defense. Jesse Bates, Caden Ellis, what else? Like, what do you expect? But their communication and specifically the ability to read off of the gaps and force that flow was noticeable down there. But let's talk about some of the offensive guys that stood out. We mentioned the running backs. It's always tough to tell preseason-wise. Like, we'll really get a better idea in the preseason with some of the guys further down the roster. But wide receivers, I felt, had a nice solid day. And I think that was led by number 5, who has kind of been like the standout of training camp, I think, most consistently. And once again, put on a show and ended the day with such a flourish. Tori, what'd you see from Drake London?
I thought Drake was Drake.
Yeah. Was it a touchdown?
Was it a touchdown?
Last play?
I was on the hill. I thought he was in. Like I thought he had it. I thought it was good.
See, I thought his feet weren't on the ground.
Really?
I think it was elbow and no other body
I was
part.
running to a meeting at the very end, so all I heard, I turned around right as he was coming down, and I was like, he did it. Like,
but even the team, I don't think was 100% sure.
I know, they were like,
because
they
came together and watched the replay.
Yeah.
So that was entertaining. Regardless, it was a great catch.
The jump ball over, who was in
AJ Terrell.
Was it AJ or was Mike Hughes?
There were two. The end zone one was Mike Hughes, but there was one previously that he had a jump ball on AJ Terrell.
Yeah.
AJ couldn't have done anything different.
There was nothing.
Drake just...
He high pointed the ball and Drake did what Drake London does. Like he did what he is paid the money to do.
Yeah.
And I think Drake, I believe you're talking to Baldy at the end of this podcast, and I think even he was just like, this is a guy who's gonna 150 catches. Like everyone's predicting Drake London to have this crazy year, and he's doing all the right things right now that makes sense why people feel that way.
Tori's like at fantasy.
Hey, yeah. Yes.
All right, so we've talked about some of the names and really a lot of the offensive players I think played well out there, but who are some guys that we should maybe be looking for on Friday when they suit up for that preseason game that fans may not be aware of, that we haven't had a chance to really spotlight on this show, that you are looking forward to seeing out there on Friday? Terrin, we'll start with you.
What I'm really curious now, because Carlos Washington Jr. wasn't at practice today, is who's going to carry the bulk of the load now on Friday. Mm-hmm. There are other options. You saw a lot of Elijah Dotson, Joshua Corbin, and
Nathan Carter.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, who's going to step up if Carlos is indeed out? Mm-hmm. We don't know. We have no update there, but I noticed he wasn't there and was kind of like, ooh, circle. Mm-hmm. Another one I'm curious is because Casey Washington has stepped up so much in the past week, who's going to do so in the preseason? Because it's like everyone you thought was going to be in the game is now like taking a step later, where maybe Casey's out there for 1 or 2.
Right.
But I don't think he's going to be the predominant receiver. So who's next? I'm really curious if David Sills, the 5th, goes out there.
Yeah.
When you said Jesse Bates, the 3rd, I was like, there we go.
We're at
so David Sills, the 5th.
Yep.
Because he has been one of Kirk Cousins' favorite targets in training camp. And even though Kirk isn't going to play, if David gets more reps, he even got reps today with the first team, that I wonder if they like what they're seeing out of him. He is a veteran. So those are probably my two. I'm curious about the offensive line cultivating depth, because you never know, even though there's such a veteran presence and so much experience, knock on wood, who would be the next man up. Right. So those are like the 3 areas I'm looking. Yeah. AK, what have I left?
No, you've left me something. So I had 3 players that I was going to pinpoint to tell the people about, and it was Natrone Brooks, David Sills, who you've touched on, and then Brandon Dorless.
Oh, I only did offense.
There you go.
No, that's okay. So this works out that I'm doing defense.
You do defense.
I'm doing defense. So Natrone Brooks, he's had a great camp. This is somebody who has been exceptionally competitive at outside corner. I even talking to Caden Ellis on Tuesday, kind of asking him like, who has embodied what Jeff Ulbrich wants this defense to be? And he's like, Natrone Brooks. He's out there running. He's out there making plays. He's getting hands on balls. Like I think that Natrone Brooks is fighting. It's obvious to me that this is someone who is fighting to be a part of this 53-man roster. And I know right now, as I'm kind of pinpointing what a 53-man roster looks like, I'm having a hard time keeping him off of the roster simply because I think he is playing enough to warrant being on that 53-man as a piece of depth behind Mike Hughes, AJ Terrell. And so he's somebody I'm pinpointing. I hope that we do get to see a bit of a run from him in this preseason time. And then Brandon Dorless is someone who I'm really curious to see how much run we get of him in the preseason, especially this first game, because he's someone who's what they're doing across the defensive line with him, I think is a little bit different. I think that it kind of plays to his strength as kind of this like tweener of a defensive lineman, where you can put him inside if you need to, but he can also act as this big end, which happened a few times early on in the scrimmage today, where they had a 4-man front, and it was Leonard Floyd, David Onyemata, I believe it was Ruka Roro, or maybe it was Zach Harrison, and then it was Brandon Dorless. And he was acting as this like big defensive end, more so than he was. And then a few plays later, they rotated back in Arnold Ebiketie, and Brandon Dorless slid back into the interior a little bit. And so he's someone who I'm curious to see what he does with this opportunity in front of him and how they utilize what they're asking him to do, because I do think he has the skill set to be this kind of fluid piece along that defensive front. So those are my two defensive guys to go along with David Sills, who I'm also really excited to see in the preseason.
Yeah, I think those are amazing names. Every one of those are on my list. I would also add interior offensive line. How is the depth there now that Newsel is among the starters? Our guest on today's show, who is about to hop on, you're going to hear his voice, a former offensive lineman himself. He is NFL Network analyst Brian Baldinger. You may know him as Baldy. So let's go ahead and throw it to our conversation with Baldy, and we will see you guys next Monday morning. Falcons final whistle coming back. First preseason game. Here we go. Very excited to be joined now by NFL Network analyst Brian Baldinger. Brian, thank you for taking the time to join me.
It's good to be in Flowery Branch. It's been a little while since I've been here, so it's good. I used to get down here to training camp quite a bit back in the day, announcing Falcon preseason games when Smitty was here. But it was good. Today was good. I mean, from sitting down with Raheem at 8:30 this morning till right now, it's been a great day here.
You talk about the Mike Smith era. They had some classic matchups against the Detroit Lions, the Calvin Johnson, Matthew Stafford era. They're going to be up against the Detroit Lions in their first preseason game on Friday. We already know that the quarterbacks, Michael Penix Jr., Kirk Cousins, not expected to play. We'll be curious to see what the starters are going to look like. But let's go ahead and kind of look big picture. And I want to start with the division. Last year, they were right there, NFC South, right at the top. Have they done enough, in your opinion, this offseason to kind of get over the hump and back into the playoffs?
Well, I don't know if getting over the hump means that you overtake Tampa, because I'm not ready to concede the division to Tampa right now. But they had shootout games with Tampa. They gave up a lot of points against them last year. They got to play better. But I think they're much better defensively. I feel like what Jeff Ulbrich, just knowing Jeff, I think the players will back him up. They really believe in what he's doing. And so, you look at the additions, whether it's Leonard Floyd or the rookies throughout the defense, whether it's Xavier Watts or Bowman or Jalen, whatever. Like, I think the infusion of youth is good, but some of the veterans they brought in are really good in keeping Jesse in the back end. This should be a much improved defense. And then it's a question of, can Michael, really play like a veteran? Just take care of the football, but yet they need to be explosive offensively, and they need to take their shots, and he's got all the ability to do that. I feel like the Falcons are being overlooked, maybe because Tampa's just been so consistent, and we know that the quarterback there has gotten really good, and they got great pieces around him. But they were good matchups last year with Tampa. They should be good matchups this year, but they're better than the Saints. They're better than Carolina. So it should be a two-horse race this year.
What do you expect to see from Michael Penix Jr. this year? I mean, obviously in his 3 starts last season, we saw, enough potential, I think, to get really excited about what he can be. But starting the course of 17 games, you have to play with a level of consistency that, a 3-game sample size just isn't enough to have a true level of confidence in. So what do you expect to see from Michael Penix Jr.
I'm a big
this
fan.
year?
I'm a huge fan of Michael. He's got a big arm. Any day you go out to practice, whether it's a deep ball or whether it's a stick throw over the middle or a swing pass to Bijan, the guy has great accuracy and touch. I believe in Michael Penix. Now, he's had the whole offseason, unlike last year. He gets every, all the reps that he wants, that he needs. And so now it's a question, and he's kind of he leads in a different way. He's not real vocal, but that's okay. You lead the way that you're built. But I believe in Michael. I believe that he's got the talent, and physically he's got the talent, whether it's to elude the rush, take off with it. That guy is an elite athlete, and he's a very smart kid. Can he do what Jaden did last year? I don't know if anybody that we're going to see come in the league can do what Jaden did last year and continues to do. But I believe he's in that conversation that he's got that type of ability. So I think they made the right move last year. I think this is the right move. And now it's a question of he's got to go out there and, to your point, he's got to be very consistent about it.
And he's getting plugged into a really ideal situation. I mean, oftentimes a lot of these high draft picks, they're not going to a situation where you have arguably the best offensive line in the league. We saw Caleb McGarry get signed to an extension earlier this week. You have all of the skill weapons you would want. What have you seen from Drake London, actually? I want to ask you about him in particular. He's been somebody, we've talked a lot about this preseason. The coaches have said he's a dirty work guy. As a former offensive lineman, like, how much do you love to hear that about a wide receiver, that he loves to come in and shoulder to shoulder with you in the trenches?
All I saw him do was catch passes today. The ball, like, I don't know, I'm not in fantasy football, but I know people are. Like, that guy might be targeted more than any other player in this league this year. Like, there's a connection already between him and Michael. Drake London, like, he's just amazing to go out there and watch practice. He catches every ball. And so, like, he's just a talented guy. He's got a big body. Like, he's always open. He caught 100 passes last year. He's going to catch more than that this year. He is an elite player. He might not have the separation skills that some guys have, but he wins in a different way. Like, his size and length. It's really, you could put the ball anywhere, and he has the radius to go get it. I'm a big believer. Anybody out there in the fantasy world looking for wide receiver number one, don't overlook Drake London.
No, absolutely not. Darnell Mooney, we saw really make a splash last year, too. He's going to be out for the preseason. Hopefully he's going to be back for the regular season. But another player in the mix, Kyle Pitts. Mm-hmm. He's been kind of an enigma here, I think, the last few seasons. What do the Falcons have to do, in your opinion, to kind of get a consistent week in, week out production from Kyle Pitts?
Well, I don't know if he is ever going to get the speed all the way back from the injury, but that was always a question mark. Can he separate? Can he win his one-on-ones with the guys out there? Today he had a number of big catches. That was encouraging. Michael Penix came to him late over the middle, put the ball right on the tee. The hands look really good. Sometimes you just need a change at that position, to become a part. I never felt like he was put in a position to be a part of the offense. He always seemed to be an extracurricular piece, even with the draft status and his size. It never, from the very beginning, I didn't feel like he was a red zone target. I didn't feel he was like a guy that they went to on third down. Sometimes players need that confidence that they're coming to him in order to emerge. It's never too late for a player to catch fire and to catch confidence. And I believe that's been part of the issue right here with Kyle.
You mentioned the defense, talking about how, they could be much improved from this year. A lot of that is going to have to do with the rookie class. Mm-hmm. You said after the draft that you felt the Falcons had the best draft class in the group. Why did you feel that way at the time? And then after, hearing and learning what you've learned today and seeing what you saw out there on the field, do you still feel that way?
Yeah, I do, because I think Billy Bowman is just he's that slot defender that Brian Branch is in Detroit. You go around the league, guys that are just made to play certain positions. Like, he's a super competitive guy. I love Xavier Watts coming out. I don't know what his role is exactly yet to see how he's going to get on the field, but I believe everybody plays three safeties in this league. So I think he's going to be learning. The two first-round picks, it's one thing to get one. It's another thing to trade up, trade a number one pick next year to get two of them. And so it's been an issue here forever, trying to find guys that can get to the quarterback and affect the quarterback. And you have to have that. You can't just scheme guys open. And so you need guys that can win one-on-ones. And I believe that they finally have guys that have that ability. Now, generally, pass rushers need a redshirt year to figure it out. But I have a feeling number 27 is kind of advanced right now and might be ready to contribute right now.
Yeah, James Pierce Jr. has really been kind of the talk of training camp. He's given the offensive line a run for their money week in and week out. Mm-hmm. Veteran like Jake Matthews. I don't know if I've seen him work as hard in a training camp in a while.
Interesting.
What do you expect? I mean, you just said that redshirt year can be beneficial, but when you have traits, the ability to win right off the ball, and that's what Jeff Holbrook is going to try to unleash. Is that a path to early results for James Pierce?
Yeah. I mean, if you look, Jared Versa was Defensive Player of the Year last year. He was first-round pick defensive end. Like, they're totally different players. But I would say that, James, like, he's already getting underneath people's skin out there. He's already being an irritant. Which you need that personality. Jalen's quiet. He goes about his business in a different way. I saw him at the Sack Summit with Von Miller, and Max Crosby told me a lot about him. That he was out there trying to learn from some of these guys at the end of June when he could have been enjoying himself someplace. So he looks like he's a serious student. He does it in a different way. But, look, the whole group, Ebiketie, Floyd, like, they've been drafting guys now for a while. Like, you've got to find guys that can win one-on-ones and bring heat off the edge. It doesn't always have to be a sack. It can be flushing a quarterback, affecting a quarterback, moving a quarterback. And I feel like James, his length, I remember just watching him at the Combine this year when he blew that, I don't know what he ran, a 4.52, whatever it was, something crazy at 250 pounds. Like, he has all the measurables and the talent. Now it's a question of, okay, let's start building the repertoire of plays, because these tackles in this league are getting more difficult to beat. And so I want to see what he can do against the elite guys right now.
Yeah, it's something I'm fascinated about as well, and it's why, I asked him, he's going up against Caleb McGarry, then Jake Matthews, then Storm Norton, then a bunch of different people, and is he starting to refine a plan while going up against different styles, or is he, just working on his natural base stuff,
He's got to be
right?
more than just his natural abilities right now.
Exactly.
He needs a plan.
So somebody who had a plan a lot last year, at least in terms of pass rushing, was Caden Ellis. He was incredibly efficient when used in that way. I think he was a big reason the Falcons turned their pass rush around after the bye week. I mean, where do you think he is he the perfect type of middle linebacker for today's NFL? Because, it kind of feels like him and Zach Bond, they're in a little bit of that mold of do everything, and that's what defensive coordinators are looking for.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, you can't line up against Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson. You can't line up against these guys and just give them the same look. You just can't. You've got to come from different. You've got to give them one thing and show them another thing. You've got to keep them guessing. If they know at the snap what you're going to do, or have a pretty good general consensus what you're going to do, they're going to carve you up. And so, whether that's a modern day thing or not, these guys are so good at the pre-snap reads right now that you've got to make them think all the way up into the the shotgun snap or the snap. And so I'm going to, and Jeff Ulbrich has that ability to do it. And so Caden fits that kind of a role right now.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that reunion of Jeff Ulbrich and Raheem Morris. It is something where I think their familiarity and their year of working together in an interim capacity, will pay immediate dividends for Atlanta. What do you think that could look like here?
Well, I imagine that when things, got turned around in New York, that phone call to Jeff was pretty quick. And then just talking to Jesse Bates today and some other guys, like they've already said it's going to be night and day different from last year. It's not to knock anybody that was here last year. Jeff Ulbrich is a very passionate, creative defense coordinator. I've seen him when he was with the Jets down his top three corners, Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, their slot defender, and they beat the Eagles with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And he had guys literally off practice squad playing corner. And he came up with a game plan where they took it away a bunch of times that day to beat the Eagles. And he just looked at me before the game like, what would you like? He had a plan, and so that kind of made me believe that we're going to build this defense about who we have and who's available, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do. But we'll give them everything right now to learn it, and so I think that you're going to see some game-to-game game planning from Jeff this year, which is going to be what you have to do in this business.
Awesome, Baldy. That's all I got for you. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to our listeners. It was a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. Have me on again. I want to see if any of these things I'm saying come true. All right?
Of course. We'll have to do a mid-year check-in with you.
Let's check in later.
Awesome. Thank you again.
You bet.